Rangers lost the series finale to the Astros in the wildest game we have seen all season, but showed exactly what we've been looking for the last 2 weeks during the struggle. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 5 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Tuesday, the 4th of July. Your Rangers are 50-35, alone atop the AL West with a 3-game lead over those stinking Houston Astros. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, in a 12-11 loss, I honestly don't even know where to start, so I think I had to start with Travis Jankowski. Yes, Travis Jankowski, the hero of this game, that I think he's honestly a huge reason why it was even so close. The guy that was supposed to be cut on opening day, if not for a Leody Taveras injury, then we might not see this at all from Travis Jankowski. He has been worth 2.1 Baseball Reference for the 9th most valuable player on the Texas Rangers. That is ahead of John Gray, Dane Dunning, Ezekiel Duran. That is just right behind Nathaniel Lowe. And he's only played in 50 games. So far this season, he's hitting .325 with an on-base of .426. That is even higher than Corey Seager. And slugging .433. That's an .859 OPS. And he was right in the middle of this one. This was a rough game for Martin Perez. Maybe the worst start we've ever seen from him. We'll talk more about the roughness that he got the Rangers into, allowing 6 runs in the second inning, and the Rangers down 6-0 before they could even blink and before they even had a base runner. And the bottom of the third inning, Travis Jankowski is the one that started this rally. He had an opposite field single followed by a Leody Taveras home run, his 10th of the season, absolutely mashed by Leody, made it a 6-2 game. Then, of course, Glenn Otto got into some trouble in the 4th inning, allowing a couple of hits, including a big 3-run bomb by Jose Abreu, who unfortunately looks back. That is a bad sign for the Rangers in his last 30 games. Abreu was horrific to start the season. Didn't hit first home run until, I believe, the middle of May. Had a kind of a start similar to Marcus Semien last year when he was just terrible for the first 2 months of the season, and he is also heating up. In his last 7 games, Abreu has 2 home runs, hitting .357, slugging .679. That is not a good sign for the Rangers, who are trying to keep these Astros at bay and really could have won every single game in this series, and maybe even should have won every single game in this series, but it didn't matter. The Rangers were down 10-2, and they rallied back for 3 runs in the bottom of the 4th inning, rallied back for 4 runs in the bottom of the 5th inning, then the bottom of the 7th inning, Adolis Garcia with the home run of the year at this point, a game-tying home run solo shot. I thought Dave Raymond was going to pass out from the intensity of his home run call. Just the most excited I think I've ever heard Dave Raymond. But Travis Jankowski was the one in the middle of all these rallies. He had a 3-run bomb in the bottom of the 4th inning. That was all the scoring in that inning. His first home run of the season. Not a guy who hits for a lot of power traditionally. He makes up for his lack of power with his defense and his hair and his ability to steal bases at will. I mean, his career high for home runs was in a season was 4 back with the San Diego Padres in 2018, and he had 1 in 2021 in 76 games with the Phillies. And I didn't realize that in 2022 he played with a game with Seattle, just 1 game with Seattle. But this year he has been so valuable, so vital to the Rangers, and I think he needs to be in the everyday lineup. I think the best lineup at this point, I love Mitch Garver. I think that the best version of him is probably the best DH that the Rangers have, and ideally I would want Ezekiel Duran in left field. That's kind of the only question mark at this point, is who's DHing and who's in left field. That's really the only thing that's changing pretty much in the ideal lineup, because we know Jonah Heim is going to be catching. We know what the infield is going to be. We know what center field and right field are going to be. It's literally just DH and left field. And I think at this point, Travis Jankowski needs to be playing more often, because he is huge and coming up in the middle of these rallies, extending the rallies, and stealing bases left, right, and center. He's the team leader with 10 stolen bases. He's only been caught stealing once. He has just been so incredibly valuable. And he's also got 20 walks to 21 strikeouts. That is insane. This guy who was not going to be on the roster if not for that Leody injury has made himself critical, absolutely crucial to this team. Like, he is so important to this team, which is not something that I ever thought was going to happen. And, Adolis Garcia has also been a crucial part of this team, was named to his second All-Star appearance. He is a multi-time All-Star. No one can take that away from him. And I think that boost kind of helped him in this one. He came up with a couple of huge defensive plays, a leaping grab at the wall in the first inning to keep the Astros probably off the board. That looked like extra bases and it might have scored Altuve. And then another leaping grab later on in this game. And of course, the massive home run and an RBI single as well. Adolis Garcia just keeps coming up clutch, and people who keep doubting him or keep being wrong, and they're going to continue to be wrong about Adolis Garcia. I mean, his 69 RBIs, which is also very nice, leads all of Major League Baseball at this point. 21 bombs. He's on pace for a 40 bomb season. The Rangers haven't had anybody hit 40 home runs since Joey Gallo did back in 2021, I believe it was. Actually, no, he didn't hit 40 bombs that year with the Rangers. That was, I believe, 2019. Nope. 2018, I believe, was the last time that the Rangers had a 40-homer player. I think Adolis can do it. Adolis, if he goes on a tear, he might even get to 50 because of how incredibly special his power is, how his walk rate has been improving, how the rest of this lineup is so dangerous that you can't really pitch around Adolis. You got to pitch to him. You got to pitch to everybody in this lineup, 1 through 9, except for Josh Smith, who was in this game DH, but did have a pretty productive day as a DH. Had a sac bunt that could have been called for a lane violation, but thankfully that call was not made. Josh Smith, I mean, it's hard for him to be productive when he's not getting at bats, not getting in there every day, and so this is back-to-back games with him DHing, so maybe that'll help him be more productive when he does get into the lineup a little bit more frequently. I think that would definitely benefit him, and I do still think he is a valuable player on this roster, and in terms of shortstop defense, I think he might have the best shortstop defense of anybody on this roster, but still, this was a 1 through 9 contribution. I mean, mainly 4 through 8 in the lineup of Adolis Garcia, Josh Jung, Jonah Heim, Travis Jankowski, and Leody Taveras. 3 hit games from Jankowski and Leody Taveras, multi-hit games from Adolis Garcia and Josh Jung, who had a couple of singles that were crucial to starting rallies or continuing rallies. Both those guys coming up big, and Corey Seager with the go-ahead sac fly doing exactly what he needed in the bottom of the 8th inning, and this just was not Will Smith's day. And, name a more iconic combination, or a more iconic duo than a reliever having one bad day and immediately everyone's saying that reliever should be cut. I'm not really worried about Will Smith. It was a bad day, and honestly a bad defensive read by Travis Jankowski in the Ibotta, or the top of the 9th inning, to try and make a leaping grab on that double when he missed it by about 3 feet. Probably should have played that off the wall, be a little bit safer with a 1-run lead and give Will Smith a chance to get out of it. He didn't, and that was what ended up scoring the tying run. And then the go-ahead run scored, of course, on Chas McCormick, who was just the absolute murderer of the Rangers today. The first run of the game, he scored he drove in the last run of the game and robbed Josh Jung of extra bases, a .500 expected batting average on that ball that Josh Jung hit in the bottom of the 9th inning. That probably would have been a double, but a leaping grab from Chas McCormick saved that one and kept the Rangers from coming back again and winning this one in the manner of like 13-12. I honestly don't know if I could have handled another momentum swing with how insane this was. Coming up, we're going to look at why this was exactly what the Rangers needed, and is Martin Perez hurt? We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. If you're feeling like the Rangers' odds for winning the AL West are down just a little bit, and you want to place a bet now on thinking that they're going to double down and win the AL West and turn around after this rough series, and you could go ahead and do that. There is no better place to do it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Wednesday's show, I'll be talking about this series opener against the Red Sox and why these two series are so crucial for the Rangers heading into the All-Star break. The Rangers take on Boston this week. You can catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, my theory as to why Martin Perez was so bad in this one is I think he was hurt. I really think that's the indication that why this was probably the worst start I think I've ever seen from Martin Perez. I mean, you look at his pitches on Baseball Savant, and every single one of them was down in velocity. Some of them were down significantly. His sinker was down 1.2 miles per hour on average. His cutter was down 0.7 miles per hour on average. Changeup down 0.9 miles per hour, and his slider was down 2.8 miles per hour on the average pitch this year, from the average pitch this year. And that's just something that is pretty striking. I mean, the spin rate was down on all of them. Every single pitch outside of the slider, which was up 4 rotations per minute, which is not significant, and the movement was down significantly on all of those pitches. So I mean, everything was flat. He was not hitting his zones. He was not getting calls. He was not hitting the glove where he needed to, and that's why he got absolutely lit up in this one. I think he probably should have been taken out before he faced Kyle Tucker. I mean, two of the 3 home runs that he allowed were just absolute meatballs right down the plate. And that's not Martin Perez. When he is on his game, he is hitting his spots. He is not leaving anything over the middle of the plate. That is what gave him so much success last year. And that's why I think that he is a very, very valuable player, because he does not usually do that. That is not typical of Martin Perez. And I think that he should probably skip his next start heading into the All-Star break, maybe give that start to Cody Bradford, who, by the way, was absolutely incredible in this one. Truly exceptional. Did not allow a single base runner in this game and was crucial to keeping the Rangers in it when the offense was rallying in the bottom of the second or third, fourth, fifth, seventh, eighth innings. I mean, Cody Bradford came in through 2 1/3 perfect innings of baseball, 4 strikeouts for him, no base runners at all. His ERA is now down below 5, and I think his ERA is not a great indicator of how good I think he is. And honestly, I think he might even be a better option than Martin Perez in the rotation just going forward. I don't think they're going to do that because they trust Martin Perez, and Perez has a much longer track record of figuring things out and being an okay starter at the big league level, which, by the way, he's still an okay starter at the big league level. I think a lot of people have overreacted to saying that Martin is just terrible. I mean, his ERA right now is at 4.81. That's just 9% worse than league average, and he's still, for the most part, giving you a lot of innings. Obviously, this one, he did not give you a lot of innings, but he is saving this bullpen from having to go super deep into games with guys like Andrew Heaney that don't always necessarily go super deep into games in this rotation. Having a guy who can give you 6 innings, even if he's giving you 6 innings, 3 runs, with this offense, that's good enough to keep you in the game. And that's what you're asking for from your starting pitchers. Just keep you in the game while the offense absolutely mashes. And that's another thing we saw, is this offense getting back to their old selves, getting back to hitting with runners in scoring position. The Rangers went 3 for 10 with runners in scoring position, only left 4 runners on base. They were very efficient with their base runners in this one. And one of the things that this team has not done very much of, one of the things we have not had to see them do very much of, is come from behind. And when the Rangers went down 6-0, especially when they went down 10-2, I thought, okay, well, this one's definitely done, because this team has been so good that they haven't had to come back from down big deficits. We saw a couple of rallies in the Phillies series, and I don't think the Rangers were even really losing by that much. Definitely not by this much. This would have been the second biggest comeback in Texas Rangers franchise history, coming back down from 8 runs. But they rallied, and they kept rallying and kept rallying and kept rallying. They got runs in the 7th and the 8th innings, something that they hadn't done a whole lot of, especially against this Astros bullpen. This is a good Astros bullpen. The Rangers got to him. I mean, Hector Neris had a blown save. He has an ERA of now 130. It was about like 107, I think, before that bomb by Adolis Garcia. Then they got to Brian Abreu for a run in a weird 8th inning. I mean, Leody Taveras started off with a single right up the middle. Josh Smith, like I said, that important sac bunt. Then Marcus Semien hits the ball to the third baseman, Alex Bregman, and Leody Taveras honestly makes a big mistake. The Rangers are kind of lucky that they didn't get rung up on this, but Leody gets too far off second base, and Alex Bregman starts chasing him back to second base and makes a throw that a normal height second baseman might have been able to make, but Jose Altuve is just too short, and the throw goes over his glove, and Leody gets to third base, runners on the corners with one out, and Corey Seager does his job, gets the sac fly, gets the runner in, and gives the Rangers the lead in that one. So the Rangers were doing all the small ball things. They also got a stolen base from Marcus Semien when he reached on an error, a throwing error, I believe, by the shortstop in this one, Mauricio Dubon, and he got himself into scoring position. The Rangers weren't able to do anything with him in scoring position, but still getting himself into scoring position after reaching on an error, compounding that error by making it harder. The Rangers were very good at stealing bases in this one on Saturday. They stole 4 bases against Martin Maldonado, who is a very good defensive catcher, but it seems like the Astros pitchers were not doing a great job of holding the runner, especially Christian Javier, who the Rangers lit up. They absolutely lit up Christian Javier, who has been in a really, really rough way. He was supposed to be the Astros' number 2 starter. We saw him throw a no-hitter in the World Series last year. This is a really, really good starter, and right now his season ERA is over 4 at 4.34, and in his last 7 starts he's got an ERA of 6.61. He's got more earned runs in his last 7 starts that he does strikeouts. That bodes well for the Rangers moving forward, that the Astros number 2 is kind of pitching like number 2. Honestly, he's not been very good, and the Rangers did take advantage and got to him. I wish they could have done that in the bullpen game. I wish they could have done that on the Friday game, but I'll take it. I'll take this offense waking back up, because it had been a rough month for this offense, which we all knew they weren't going to continue hitting. The entire team wasn't going to continue putting up Barry Bonds slash lines with runners in scoring position. That's not sustainable for anybody. Even the 1927 Yankees, or the whatever year the Yankees in the 20s, in the middle of their dynasty, when they had, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and literally every great hitter ever in their lineup. I mean, this Rangers lineup is incredibly deep, but they're not that team. They don't have 6 Hall of Famers in their lineup. I mean, maybe if things go really, really right for a Josh Jung and Corey Seager and Marcus Semien and Nathaniel and Jonah Heim and Ezekiel Duran, and all of them hit like the 100th percentile of their career arc, but I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. So they were all going to come, all these numbers were going to come crushing down, but seeing them come crushing down at the same time in the last couple weeks has been brutal, but the Rangers have mostly withheld that stretch. They had a winning record in the month of June. They went 14-13. It was a rough month, and thank God they had all those games that they started off the month so hot, and then things kind of fell apart after that. This was a hard month, a hard schedule. We always knew that this was going to be a difficult month, and July is not getting much easier. I mean, it starts with this series against the Astros, then the Rangers head to Boston for 3 games, and then head to the Nationals for 3 games, which thankfully neither of those teams are doing super well right now, and the Rangers are in the end of this 30 games in 31-day stretch. They really, really need this All-Star break, but when you come back, it doesn't get much easier. I mean, the first series is against Cleveland, and then you got the Rays, you've got the Dodgers, and then you got another series against the Astros, this one in Houston, and then you travel to San Diego, which actually might not be that difficult of a series as the Rangers might have thought beforehand. So, I mean, these 2 months, if you can survive, you can have a winning record and stay atop your division, keep that division lead at 3 games like it is right now. I mean, this is one of the worst case scenarios. I mean, the only case that was worse if they lost the Saturday game, but I don't think there was any scenario where the Rangers were getting swept in this one in a 4-game series. But this was a real missed opportunity. It's frustrating, but Bruce Bochy isn't worried, so I'm not worried. The Rangers have the right guy in charge, and a lot of guys with experience winning on this team. I think they'll turn it around and hopefully start off a winning winning streak when they head to Boston. Coming up, we're going to look a little bit at that series and a little bit more about this Rangers bullpen. But first, let's word from our sponsors. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Thursday's show, I'll be looking a little bit more in depth at this bullpen and where the Rangers need to improve. The Rangers take on the Red Sox this week and catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, this bullpen had a mostly great performance. This is a little bit of a rough outing for Glenn Otto in his new role as the Rangers' long reliever, I guess right-handed long reliever, and there wasn't a whole lot of other options for the Rangers at this point. The Rangers got 2 1/3 innings of perfect baseball from Cody Bradford, which was excellent off of 4 days rest. I mean, really, really great outing from him. But Otto, if he had just kept the Astros to just 2 runs in his 3 1/3 innings of work, that would have been much nicer, and maybe the Rangers would have actually won this game. But I think that Glenn Otto's ideal role is, taking that fastball up a couple of notches from even where it was in this one. I mean, right now, he averaged 93.4 miles per hour on his fastball. It maxed it out at 95.1, minimum of 91.7. I think that could definitely be cranked up a little bit in a 1-inning, just high leverage kind of role. I think that's ideally where he would fit, and that sweeper would be even more effective than it was. He got 5 swings and misses on 17 total swings, so a 29% swing and miss rate on swings from that sweeper, and then a 38% swing and miss rate on his 4-seam fastball. Really, really effective there, and I think that would just play up even more in a 1-inning role. But I'm not blaming Bruce Bochy for this one. When your starter only gets you an inning at third, you got to throw somebody out there, and there's really not a whole lot of guys. Dane Dunning is no longer in that pen to come out and get you 4 1/3 or 5 innings in relief if your starting pitcher has to come out of the game due to injury or due to being absolutely rocked by the Astros. So I think it's fine, and I think ideally that's where he would be. But if the Rangers need him to be the long man right now and Cody Bradford step into the rotation, maybe just for a start or maybe for longer, if this team wants to go with a true 6-man rotation to kind of ensure the long-term health of the starters, I think that might be something that would benefit them. Thankfully, they're going to have a lot more off days moving forward. I mean, they had, they're in the middle of, like I said, a 30 games in 31-day stretch, and they've got quite a few off days coming up. They've got the All-Star break, they've got off days on the 20th and the 27th and the 31st as well in this month, so thankfully they'll be able to at least rest a little bit, reset the rotation, give a couple guys some extra days rest, and not have to go everybody every 4th day, or every 5th day, I should say, as consistently as they have, and I think that's going to be a huge benefit to them. I think that part of the reason they kind of fell apart offensively the last couple of days is because they are so exhausted. This is a really rough stretch and a really rough month of June, but the Rangers needed it. The Rangers honestly needed to face some struggles this year. They had been so good for the first 2 months. They had so little trouble dispatching pretty much anybody from April to May. I mean, this team lost one series in the month of May, and that was to the Braves, who were absolutely incredible. I mean, this team needed to face some adversity, and unfortunately, it had to be against the Houston Astros and against the Angels, both of whom were teams that the Rangers are trying to hold off. And it was also against the Rays, which, again, anybody who travels to the Trop is going to have a rough day. And also, unfortunately, they had to do it against the Yankees, who were a team that's absolutely beatable at that point, and split a series with the Tigers. This is just a really rough second half of June, but it's not like the Rangers are full of just rookies, guys who haven't gone through struggles like this, guys who haven't pulled out. They have Corey Seager, they have Marcus Semien, they have Nathaniel Lowe and Adolis Garcia. I mean, they have a lot of starting pitchers that have been around, who know how to handle losing streaks, know how to weather the storm, and they've got a manager in Bruce Bochy who's a surefire Hall of Famer with 3 freaking rings. He's got 3 rings, and he has taken the Padres to a World Series that he ended up losing back in the 2000s. So, I mean, this guy has been around. Actually, that might have been 1998, I think. But the point is, he's been around forever. He knows exactly what buttons to push. He knows exactly when to yell, when to speak calmly, when to give a hand of encouragement, when to give someone a kick in the pants if they need it. And I completely trust Bruce Bochy to have this team firing on all cylinders in the second half. I mean, you're never going to go through an entire season and face absolutely no adversity. That's just not how it works. The Rangers got off to a great start. They did exactly what they needed to give themselves some cushion in these middle months of the season where it's going to be tough. They've got some tough series against the Astros, and even not doing as much as they could have in the series that were winnable against teams that were not nearly as good. But I trust this team to be in a position to perform well down the stretch, and I think that Will Smith might still end up being the closer. I think that's the part where the Rangers are probably going to make the biggest improvement. But Will Smith had a blow-up outing in a one-run game. This team has not been good in one-run games this season. They are 5-12, which is incredibly frustrating because the team has been so good. They have not been great at rallying down late, and the bullpen has been a little leaky this year, but it's in a good place right now. Got to see a perfect inning from Adolis Chapman, who was solid in this one and definitely helps this Rangers bullpen. I mean, Josh Sborz pitched on back-to-back days, so there was no way he was available. We hadn't seen Will Smith in a little bit, so just saw him for 3 pitches on Saturday, and he hasn't been pitching that consistently because the Rangers have not been winning as consistently, so that's a little frustrating. But I mean, for the most part, his numbers are still really good. He's only blown 2 saves in 16 opportunities, got 14 saves, 33 strikeouts in 31 innings, a whip of 0.90. I mean, we know how good the breaking stuff is. He's not walking a whole lot of people. He's getting a decent strikeout rate, decent swing and miss rate, and his chase rate is in the 98th percentile. That's what you want from a guy who relies very heavily on 2 breaking balls. Guys are making weak contact. They are not barreling him up too much, and they are swinging missing when they are expanding the strike zone, which is happening quite often. So I'm not worried about Will Smith. I mean, yeah, it may feel a little fluky because his fastball is only 93 miles an hour and it doesn't have an elite spin rate either. It's in the 39th percentile of spin rate. But those breaking pitches are just so freaking good, especially that slider that he uses 47% of the time. He's trustworthy in the back of the pen. Josh Sborz, despite his rough outing, I just think don't pitch him on back-to-back days. That seems like a lesson that Bruce Bochy is learning. Then you'll have a more successful Josh Sborz. Adolis Chapman is a solid back end of the pen option, and the rest of the guys are mostly fine. I think Leclerc is definitely figuring some things out. Maybe if Jonathan Hernandez can figure out what's been ailing him while he's down in AAA, I think that would be a huge boost to the pen if he can get anywhere near where he had been at his peak. And I mean, the rest of this pen is mostly really solid. I mean, Brock Burke is definitely trustworthy back there. I mean, you got Grant Anderson, who has definitely shown flashes. I mean, Joe Barlow has been a little bit of a rough outing, a couple of rough outings, and I don't know how much I trust him in high leverage situations. But as a 6th inning guy, or a guy you put in the 7th inning of a game that you're losing, he's fine. He's fine. I mean, the Rangers are probably going to upgrade to more than fine, so that they can actually go on a deep World Series run, hopefully, or just a deep playoff run in general. But this team is in a good place. They still have really great odds to make the playoffs, according to Baseball Reference, which is much more kind to them than Fangraphs. Fangraphs has them at like a below 80% chance to make the playoffs, which I feel like is just a huge exaggeration. I think that Fangraphs sticks a little bit too much to what they did at the beginning of the season. But right now, according to Baseball Reference, this team has a 95.3% chance to make the postseason. That was the goal. That was the entire goal the entire way. It wasn't to win the AL West. I mean, that's kind of the goal now. But the goal was just to make the playoffs in that playoff drought, and this team is good enough to compete with anybody in the playoffs, especially if things are kicking right. They still have a 69.6% chance to win the AL West, and if you had told me at the beginning of the season or at the beginning of the offseason last year, this team would have a 69.6% chance to win the AL West on July the 4th, I would have slapped you in the mouth and called you a liar and a crazy person. But this team is in a good place. This was a rough series. It was a rough month of June. Things are pulling out. The All-Star break is coming up. The Rangers really need to take advantage of this series against Boston and against the Nationals and just go rest during that All-Star break, come back and look like the Rangers of earlier this year for the second half. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy first place Texas Rangers baseball.